Hey, welcome back to Unclocking the Cage Heart podcast, presented to you by your host, YW, and our guest speaker, of course, JB. Hey, today's topic is going to be relationships, which is meaningful yet complex topic for most people due to different reasons. We are just hoping that these episodes that we're doing right now touches someone throughout the segments. There's so much to unlock. Relationships are at the core of the human experience, where romantic, whether familiar, platonic, or professional, healthy relationships provide emotional support, build self-esteem, and contribute to our mental and physical well-being. They teach us about communication, empathy, trust, and resilience. On the flip side, unhealthy connections can drain us, foster insecurities, hinder personal growth. In this episode, we will begin to explore what makes relationships thrive, what breaks them down, and obviously how we can build connections that are as enriching as they are enduring. So without further ado, we will jump right into this podcast, relationships. And just to give you a little overview, because the last podcast we did was about the man. So if you haven't had an opportunity to tune into that one, make sure you go to and do so on YouTube. Since we're talking about relationships, I just gave you a short synopsis about what we're going to be talking about at the core of the topic. We're going to go look into romantic relationships, friendships, family dynamics. We're going to talk about self and relationships a little bit, because it's important to know yourself. And oftentimes what we find to be true is that, man, we don't know ourselves. I'm going to talk about modern day love, some of the conflicts and resolutions, and then we're going to close out. But this is a very important topic for most. And just before we even jump into the first question here, Jonathan, what's your take on relationships?
My take on relationships is that you should love with all your heart. Don't hold nothing back. I think people have learned to be manipulative and deceptive to gain others' love. And I think that when you stay true to yourself and give your all, no matter if that relationship succeeds or fails, you be comfortable with what you did, because you couldn't give no more of you. You gave all of you, and that's all that matters. And if it wasn't enough for that person, it'll be enough for somebody else.
Yeah, but and that brings me to some other questions, because oftentimes what we hear, or what is really taking place in the community, is that there's one person giving all of them, and then other folks who are just becoming a sounding board for people's trauma, for people's pain. But before, I don't want to go too far into that right now, because we got so much other things to cover. So let's talk about romantic relationships for a minute here. For you, Jonathan, what does a healthy relationship look like?
A relationship look like to me is honesty and transparency at its core, right? But everybody wants all the other traits and characteristics: accountability, vulnerability, honesty, loyalty, affection, fun, communication, intimacy, and a love of learning each other, right? Everybody wants these things, but I learned love from everybody. It was a person who just told me, like, arguing is healthy. Like, it's just, you don't let your arguments become unhealthy. Don't let them get to a point to where, like, when you enter this conversation, you feel like it's going to go in a negative way. But to get the things out that's on your heart and your mind is healthy. And I believe in that. I agree with that. But I say, don't let it get to a point to where you're with this person and all you think about is the bad. Like, there's so much bad that comes up and so much negative that you just sucked all the fun out of your relationship by arguing so much, putting all these rules and boundaries and restrictions to each other, to where now you're like, it's not fun anymore.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, to that point, I've heard people say that arguing can be healthy. I don't really necessarily think that arguing per se is healthy, but I think disagreements can be healthy, because we're not always going to agree. Huh?
Let's say debates then. Debating is healthy.
Yeah, either way. The Bible says, how can two walk together unless they agree? And so we may not always see eye to eye, but we can come to an agreement, understanding where we understand one another. I mean, I like to say, when I just listening to your definition of what a healthy relationship is, just if I can just put my 2 cents in it, my ideal healthy relationship for me can only exist when someone loves the Lord. And that's my idea of a healthy relationship, because I know that if you can give your all to God and you respect what God has put out there and laid out, which is a strong foundation for me, then in the end, you're going to respect the person you're with, which is me. And not just me, but you're going to have love and respect for all. And I think you're able to love me through my process. You're able to love me through my difficult time, because you're learning first how to love yourself, because God teaches you what love is. And I think oftentimes that foundation or that step is missed. And so it takes us to just go back a little bit and find that piece that's been missing. But anywho, jumping right into question number 2. How important is communication versus compatibility in a romantic relationship?
That's a great question.
Yeah, I mean, because some people can communicate, and some people can't, and some people are compatible, some people can't. You know, how important is it for you to have one over the other? Because some people have one and are very strong in that area, and then there's others who are not.
Yeah, because I say that because I've been in those situations multiple times where I'm like, I'm so compatible with this person, like I like them, but they're just a love interest more, say, right? Like they're just someone that I like how they talk, but our communication ain't on to the level I want. I like somebody who could go in depth. I like somebody who's just as introspective as me, to where they can analyze who they are and tell me who they are and why they are and the things about their life. I like somebody who can go into detail when they're emotionally intelligent, like all of that. But then I just find those people that I just like. I like them on a shallow level, like, but are you really supposed to be with somebody exactly like you? Sometimes I question, because if I like this person on this shallow level, why not let that be? But my reason for not letting that be is because I know when the hard times come and I gotta face life and it gets real, can I really count on you to be there to support me when the world is too heavy for me to carry alone?
So, in the end, your response is, how important is communication versus compatibility in a relationship? Are they equally the same? Are they?
Mine is communication. If you can't communicate with this person, I don't think they should be your forever partner.
So I'm gonna.
I think they should just be in the meantime partner until y'all realize like this ain't permanent.
So I want to challenge that just a little bit, or maybe just a different viewpoint, because I think both of them are just as equally as important, and I think with communication, that doesn't happen overnight. And I think that's something that's developed. And there's a lot of folks that I find that are compatible with me, which we can go out and do anything. We can be Superman, Superwoman. We can go play Spider-Man, Spider-Woman. We can go do all kind of things out there together. We can go rock climbing. And they're just compatible with me on different areas. Hiking, whatever it is that I like to do, whatever it is that they like to do, we're compatible. And I find that not only have some of the folks that I've dated lack communication, but what really hit home is when I found out I lack communication. For whatever reason, I could communicate any and everything I desire to communicate outside of a relationship. Whenever it came time for me to communicate how I feel in a relationship, it's like the cat got my tongue, or I just choked up, or all kind of stuff. And so I had to give some grace to other folks that I've encountered who just don't know how to communicate, because it's a pet peeve of mine too. So let me just say this. This is very hypocritical. Pet peeve of mine is people that don't know how to communicate. However, I found out through that being a pet peeve of mine that I just didn't know how to communicate. And so while God was teaching me how to communicate, he was imputing grace for me for other people who didn't know how, and having me to understand that there's a process, and not all of us woke up one day knowing how to communicate. So for me, I think, and for some people, communication versus compatibility in a romantic relationship is going to be just as equally as important, and you're going to have to be willing to go through the process. Like you said, there's some shallow people, there's some surfacey people, there's some people that, and oftentimes we want the best of both worlds, but how do you get there without going through the process? And that's what I just wanted to prompt the listeners to think about. How do you get there when some of us give up so easily? I mean, we know what we want. People get what they want. They take what, you just go after what you want. And sometimes we don't wait for what it is that we need. Anyways.
But that's why I said that. Like, in the meantime.
In the meantime? What is that? What does that mean, in the meantime? So in the meantime, you're going to do... Explain yourself, brother. Explain yourself, young man.
Yeah, in the meantime, this what in the meantime means. I don't believe in giving up on somebody that you're in a relationship with, in a marriage with, anything. I don't believe in giving up on this person, right? As long as they're willing to fight with you and work with you, I believe you work with that person. And if you realize during that time that they won't ever be the person that you need and want them to be, and you can't do the same for them, then it's time to let it go. And that was one of my questions. Like, when is it okay to realize to let go? Because a lot of people are like, man, I'm with this person. They do this and that and this and that and this. They have all these issues about this person, but they don't really want to let them go.
That's a difficult question that you're asking. When is it time to let go? Because sometimes I feel
you have 1 minute remaining.
Because sometimes I feel like people let the relationship go too far in the first place. First of all, most people are seeing these red flags, like things that they know aren't going to necessarily change, and they continue on. And some of us hide behind the excuse of they'll change. It's almost like, for me, if I can use this context, an abuser putting their hands on you and they'll change. And this is the thing. I'm not saying that they can't change, but how long are you going to become that punching bag or in that relationship when you're seeing no progression of change?
When do you let go of your emotions tied to your most significant relationship? This relationship is already over, but yet it was your ground zero of love. You was like, this is how I want to be loved. This person loved me the right way, and I liked it so much that now it's in comparison to all your other relationships. But how do you let go of your emotions tied to this? Because everybody can't live up to this. Everybody can't live like this. Everybody loves different. One of the hardest lessons I ever had to learn. So when do you feel it's appropriate to be like, I have to let this go? Like, this is something in the past. It's not coming back. And how do you cut these ties?
Well, first of all, you just gave me a sandwich that was loaded. But I'm going to try to answer that to the best of my ability here. I think it's a process. And I know as much as we want to say, like, you know how people say, just let it go, let it go. I don't think things happen as fast as we will want them to. Because this relationship scarred me. This relationship pained me. This relationship caused me to go through things I've never experienced in my life. This was a pivotal point in my life. This was a turning point in my life. This relationship that I'm going to describe had the ability of sending me back to rock bottom, or as I felt in that relationship that I hit rock bottom, or possibly giving me one of the best opportunities in my life. I think it's contingent upon how you look at it. I think there will always be a process. And I think that in the moment, we're telling ourselves, I'm done. I can't hurt like this anymore. I'm done. But then I think there's a process that people go through, or should I say a phase that people go through, of thinking or wishing or hoping that this really ain't what it is, that this really isn't over. So then I think sometimes the person or the individual hold on to what was instead of what is, and so that they're able to cope and move forward. I think the best thing a person can do in that situation is to embrace every single emotion and let that be the foundation that pulls you out. Because in that relationship, if it was so significant, I guarantee you that relationship is a relationship that taught you so many different things. It taught you things that you never thought that you would have went through, been through, grew through, and was able to teach the next generation. But oftentimes what happens in those situations is the person is so broken, so just out of touch of reality because of the situation that they don't pass on that knowledge, and they don't take the things that made them different, that made them stronger, that made them wiser, because we're so busy coping with the effects of it. So I think, to answer your question in short, it's a process. And as much as we want to let it go, I would say, instead of letting it go, embrace those emotions, embrace those times, embrace that very thing to the core and to the best of your ability, and learn how to cope with that and allow it to make you stronger. Learn from the good things about it. Now, what I would say, I think is something that you should let go, if anything, out of that situation, is to compare and contrast, because that's going to be probably the hardest thing. Because if that was such a significant relationship for you, nobody you meet afterwards will be able to meet up to those standards, because it has set the bar high in your mind. So if anything needs to be let go, not the emotions that built you and made you and shaped you like the potter into who you have become, but letting go of the compare and contrast, because nobody would ever be able to fill those shoes.
Exactly. And that was beautiful. I love the way you did it. That was beautiful. Because you know what? What I got from it was the same thing. Like, I learned to characterize somebody in their true light. Step all the negative about them, step all the positive about them. Each person you love teach you about love in a different way, a different form. And this is just you growing as a person and moving on and becoming the best version of yourself. So even those things that you missed out on in that past relationship that you didn't give it in your next one. And give it in the one after that. Like, you're learning who you are, and you're learning what you want, and you're learning what you need. But you came to this point in your life for some reason, for some point. And if you over characterize them as this statue that's never moving and they did all great, you'll never be able to be like, okay, how do I get past this? I need them back. They're the only person that has it. They're not. There's many people in the world, but they just may be the one who did it the best for you. But still, be that best person for somebody else. Like, move on and move forward, because if you keep looking back, you'll never get where you're going.
Exactly. Each situation is building you, is building your character, is building you. And situations are not meant to keep you down. Now, what keeps us down is ourselves, right? And what reason, right? We're human. And this human, sometimes we have those breakdowns. Sometimes we have those moments. And I think and to me, I think even embracing those moments, because you know what? The next person is having those moments, the same identical moments that you've had. And now you're in a position, huh?
So now we go to another question. What do you do if you're with someone who thinks they're ready for a relationship, yet they're emotionally unavailable?
So I think that's also, my questions are always going to kind of allude to the process. There's a couple different ways I think I would take that. One, you may be just a person that I'm just not going to deal with. And like, that's just the reality, right? Like, you may be too emotionally unavailable that you need time for yourself. Not time for a person, but time for yourself. And I say that because I've been emotionally unavailable, and I needed to take time for myself. Like, I need to get the proper healing that I need, because otherwise I'm just going to spew all of this onto you or to the next person, right? I don't think necessarily there's a rush to be in a relationship with a person. I think that if it's meant to be, it will be. And if it's not meant to be, it won't be, right? And I think not all relationships are meant to be relationships. Some relationships are meant to be friendships. And sometimes we miss that point, and we oftentimes jump the boat, and we become more than friends when we were meant to be friends. And who knows, we would have been extravagant friends, but because we messed it up with a relationship that went rogue, now there's tension, there's chaos. And how do you revert back to something, right? So I think there's a couple different ways. There's somebody that I feel like you may be too emotionally challenged or messed up or emotionally uninvolved, or I forget how you just worded it, but I think you may be too at that point too much where I think you should take time for yourself. And so for that reason, I won't entertain a relationship. And then I think there's people who are actively coming out of that process, or who are working towards coming out of that process, that I will give an opportunity to, because I know what that's like as well. Someone who you can be that, I'm not calling you that saving grace, but you can be that rock for some folks and assist them in that process. And I'm not saying that's going to work for everyone, but you can be that one person that they just need. Like, you know what? This is what I needed to come out of where I was at. And you could be that God sent, that person that God sent for that particular situation. I don't know. And it blossoms into something else. But there's going to be two types of ways that I choose to deal with those situations. It's either I'm not, because I just don't see this being productive, and I think maybe at the moment you need time to yourself, or I'm going to evaluate the situation, and I got to be confident that I can go through this process with you, because it's got to challenge me in different areas of my life too. Because if I choose to go along with someone who's emotionally unavailable, remember, I'm going to catch some of that slack too, unintentionally. They're going to be doing things that irritate me, doing things that I don't necessarily like. I'm pretty sure I did it to somebody who allowed me and gave me the grace as well. But you're going to catch some of that. So you got to prepare yourself and say, am I ready? Am I ready to accept that? You know, am I ready to go through the process with somebody? And then if you're willing to go through the process, don't give up. Don't just give up, because you know what that looks like? Because you chose to enter into this agreement, you chose to get into this relationship. You know what that looked like when you just give up?
I can't check in if you checked out. You know, like that's the basis of it. So it takes honesty to have this conversation about this. Like, hey, you're not here. You're not fully present. I don't even really know how you love at this point, because you're so not present yet. You think you're ready for this thing. But if I could help you out of this place, if we could talk to you about the place that you're in and how to get you out of there and get you with me, then that's a conversation. It's something I could work on. It's something I could do.
Yeah.
But if it's not, I think you need that time to yourself to figure out what you got going on, and then come back when you are ready for something bigger and better.
Exactly.
But you went into a lot of depth to that question, so we'll move on to the next one.
Okay. All right.
What do you do if you're in a relationship with someone who's ready for a relationship, but their emotional trauma keeps them from loving with their whole heart?
I think the same thing. I think for me, just being honest with one another. You've had a past. You got a lot going on. And I feel like I don't have the capacity to take that on with you, but I can be a friend and walk through your process with you. Because I think that if I go further with you, which I'm not saying I don't want to, but I think it's going to affect me, and I don't want it to affect me in a way that I start to look at you differently. And so so it's the same thing that I said about the last question here. Giving yourself time and grace and mercy to heal. Giving yourself time to wrap up what just happened to you. You experienced a lot. You know, you unraveled a package. You came through a war. You were in a war zone. But the aftermath of that war zone still has residue. And residue spills on to other folks. And I think until you get what you need, and then you might be asking the question too, like, well, how long is it going to take for me to get what I need? I got what I need. You're right in front of me. You might be asking that question. But you know what? But if I'm right in front of you, accept my truth. Because my truth is telling you that if I jump in and things go awry, I might start to look at you differently than how I look at you now. I want to be here and be that person that walk not 1 mile with you, but 2. I want to be that person that go through the process with you, and I can be that sounding ear, a clear ear for you. Soon as we start to cross lines, those lines and my wisdom or the words that I speak or my words of encouragement may sound a little different than it would have been if I'm rocking with you in a different light. And in order to not taint that relationship, in order not to taint whatever God is doing in that season with us, I think it's imperative that we listen to each other's truth. Know when you can jump in and when you can't. And don't feel, oh my gosh, shit, Jonathan, you just opened up something. Don't feel obligated to jump into things. And that's what I think our society lacks. We feel obligated and we feel pressured. We feel like we have to do something that we don't. I have to be in a relationship with you because you like me or because you've expressed this and I don't want to see your face when I say no.
You have 1 minute remaining.
Or vice versa. Don't feel obligated. A true friend will tell you the truth, but an enemy will pile up kisses. And in the end, we both are hurt. I'm hurt because I just lost somebody that I wanted in my life. You know, due to something that it could have been avoided by the truth. You hurt because maybe you wanted something that you didn't get, or vice versa, the same thing. If it goes my way, I wanted something I didn't get. You told me no, you rejected me, whatever the case may be, because I don't want to just put it out there like that. But it's the truth. Don't feel obligated or don't feel pressured, but be you, your authentic you, and tell the truth. Save you from some heartaches. So, Jonathan, I gave my perspective. So, like, what's your perspective on what we just were talking about?
What to do if you're in a relationship with someone who's ready for a relationship, yet their emotional trauma keeps them from loving with their whole heart?
Yeah, yep.
It's a multitude of things, right? But I was talking to this woman who said her partner stopped paying as much attention to her as he did to his career and his life, right? And I told her, like, the same way he went and got those degrees in school, he had to get a degree in you. He got a PhD, he got to get a PhD in you. Like, and I think that is the key to every relationship. You have to learn your partner. You have to learn everything they've been through in life from a child on upwards and identify things that they don't even know about themselves for the purpose of making both of y'all better. If there's things that you could navigate and get away from, like if you know this person is always, when they're hungry, they're angry, you ask them, did they eat? You ask them what you eat today before you have any serious discussion with them. Like, you figure out who you're dealing with so you can avoid these scars, because the more you avoid these scars and you show them I'm here for you, you'll naturally help them heal. You'll naturally show them that I'm everything you need to get over this. So if they haven't done it at that point, now it's kind of like well, what's going on? What's going on with you? If I've been showing you everything you need to heal from this, what is keeping you? If you need to address it with this person who hurt you, this trauma that hurt you, let's figure this out. Let's figure this out, because I'm here for every aspect of your life. I am that person who feels obligated to be there for my partner, no matter what it is, no matter if I can't help. Like, at the end of the day, I feel like my job is to make sure you go to sleep with a smile on your face and love in your heart. You know, like, so I'm not giving up on that person who's ready. Like, this person who's ready for this, but yeah, you got a little hurt and pain going on inside of you, or a lot of it. I'm here for all of it, because I got a lot inside of me, and I'm going to share everything that you want to know with me. If you can handle it, I'm here to give it to you, and we're here to help each other through this life. We became one, and I take that measure seriously. I'm devoted to our cause above everybody else's.
Now you talking about a marriage though, or are you talking about two people that are already in the relationship?
I'm talking about a marriage and a relationship that's leading the marriage. I'm talking about when you serious.
Yeah.
When you think this is that significant person, you treat them like they're significant in every form and fashion. If you ain't a doctor, go study some books about how to be a doctor or a therapist just to help your partner cope with what they got going on in life.
Well, you said one key word for me that really just stuck out, and I'm talking about relationships, and I see where you hit on every single point. But you said if somebody can handle it, so I want to just put some emphasis on that. Know what you can handle, and if you don't think you can handle, again, I think that's when your truth needs to come out. Because, Jonathan, even you, man, you probably one of the coolest dudes I've seen in a relationship. You're probably one of them. Man, if I had to say anybody resemble a man in the Bible as far as relationships and how serious you take and are dedicated to marriage, you will be an ideal person, like, you know, as far as what I've seen and I've experienced with you. But I also know that with that, there's a lot you can unravel and unpack on a person. And I think that, like you just said, a person has to be willing to go through that. And I think for the person, you need to know what you committing to. Like, I mean, it's hard to know what you're committing to fully, right? But like you just said, all of these words and you articulated them well, right? When you said everything you just said, I was thinking in my head, can I handle something like that? That's what I was thinking. That's the first thing that came to my mind. And I think
it's not for everybody.
It's not for everybody, and people should really consider, because that's how relationships get messed up. And that's how you cause arguments and disagreements and fights and all this other stuff, because we committed to something that people feel we committed to something first without the commitment. And you went into something, and sometimes you went into it knowing what you went into, and you thought you could handle something. But Jonathan, how about this? Here's another question. What if I get into something that I think that I'm prepared for, and later on in the relationship I find out it's too much for me? What do you do at that point?
Do you think it's too much for you? I think you be honest with that person. Like, that's what I'm telling people. Like, stop lying. Truth. Like, stop lying. Like, stop being like, oh, well, I can't handle this, but I don't want to tell him because I don't want to hurt his feelings. No, man, you know how much stuff we deal with on a day-to-day basis? Tell that nigga.
Whoa. And women too. They done pushed out kids, carried them for 9 months, had to deal with the other man, had to deal with this person, had to deal with these kids. And you tell people the truth. Like, yes, people are going to be hurt in the moment, right? Of course, you just hurt their feelings. You just said something that emotionally affected them. Okay. But at the end, people respect the truth more than a lie. You carry on with this lie. Man, look at all the damage you done did. Look at all the damage you done did.
This is what I told to a woman, right? This is what I told her. I said, this is what I'm building. An unconditional love that is battle tested in every area. There won't be nothing we can't face together. Do you want that? You want a man that can guide you into areas of your life you're uncomfortable with, and then dance with you in the midst of the chaos like nothing's wrong? Because nothing can be wrong as long as my other half is present. Like, I'm that man. We're going to go to uncomfortable places. We're going to go to areas. That's going to be the first place we go to. Places that you're uncomfortable with, because I want you to know that you're safe here with me. When everything around us is going wrong and going bad, I'm here with you and we together.
Right.
But what would you have said if a man told you something like that?
Told me what you just said?
Yeah.
I would have asked the question, Jonathan, is this roller coaster free or do I have to pay?
You said what?
Excuse me, sir. You said a lot of things, but just kind of want to know: is this roller coaster free, or do I have to pay?
No, this is free.
Okay.
No, this is free.
Well, you know,
you never have to pay for chaos.
If you know, because I feel like I got a choice with it. Once I pay my money, I feel like you get it. But anyways, we got to move on. Anyways, this is what makes this so interesting, man. Relationships and the dynamics of a relationship is really you got to have a strong foundation, and it has to be based off of honesty and truth, man. You know what the Bible says? The Bible says love is patient, love is kind. You know, love does not envy, love does not boast. You know, it talks about all this good stuff. You really got to have a strong foundation that's built on love, truth, and honesty when it comes to relationships. But anyways, we got some more digging to do, so we're not even close to being done. The last question that I'm going to ask on for this episode number 1, and remember, this is relationships, guys, relationships. And I'm sure as soon as we say relationships, all you guys can relate to a relationship. At least it takes me back to a relationship. But Jonathan, this is the last question we go talk about today. Let me see. Can relationships survive cheating? If so, how? Cheater. No, I'm just playing. Keep going.
I think everybody cheat, right? Like, and I'm not condoning it.
Oh, Lord.
I'm gonna be real with you. I'm not. This is me being completely real. I think a lot of people cheat, right? I'm that man who, if you really told me that you wasn't a cheater, like, I'm gonna believe you. I'm gonna believe you. But if your actions show me other words, I'm gonna believe your actions. I'm gonna believe you until you show me that I shouldn't trust you. But I could still give you my whole heart. I could still give you my whole heart, and I could show you like this is different. If you doing this because this is what you're so normal that you think that this happens, but at the end of the day, I don't think it should be a normal thing. I think when you really do give yourself to one person and you fully give yourself to one person, that you won't cheat because they have your whole heart. Like they have your whole heart, and you've been hurt in the past, so maybe you don't want to. Like you don't want to give your whole heart, and you learn how to cheat, so your feelings won't get hurt, and you can have what you want out of life by getting it from these multiple people. But at the end of the day, like if you really gave someone your all and they gave you their all, you would know. You would know in your heart. You would see with their actions that no, this person's here for me, and they're dedicated to me, and there is no one else. And they prove it with their actions and their love every single day. And I see it. I don't even have to question it because it's so transparent.
Well, I would say this. I asked, you see, you guys, for the listeners out there, I asked this man one question. You see how elaborative that was? I asked him, can relationships survive cheating? That's all I asked him. And you see what he gave me? You see what he gave me? It was something tough. But anyways, we're going to keep him on track, you guys. Jonathan, yes or no, can a relationship survive cheating?
Yes.
You think a relationship can survive cheating? How many times can a person cheat on you?
I've seen it many of times.
And it happens.
If you ask me from experience, yes, I've seen it.
How many times can a person cheat on you before you say that enough is enough?
I don't know. I don't know because I'm gonna be honest, and I'm gonna be honest like other people are not. It depends on how emotionally connected I am to this person. If I'm willing to give them another chance. If I don't think that one fault that they had is worth ruining what I'm building and what I'm establishing with this person.
Have you been cheated on?
And that they can fix their behavior.
Have you been cheated on?
Yes.
Did you know you were being cheated on?
Yes.
Were you in a committed or uncommitted relationship at the time?
As far as marriage?
No, not marriage. Just like, were you two cheating on each other type stuff?
I mean, I really didn't have to cheat, but they probably didn't want to know the details of why.
So uncommitted, got it. So like, move forward. So this like all these questions that I'm asking, like I just prompt people because I believe people cheat in many different ways. You can cheat in conversation. You can cheat just talking to other folks, doing things that you would do with your partner. I think there's a lot of different ways that you can cheat on a person. And it affects the other person, right? And so when I say can relationships survive cheating, and if so, how? I think the answer will be yes. It can survive cheating, but I think so much of the act itself, without progression towards making things right or not doing the same behavior that got you into this place in the first time, I think that's what causes a relationship to die. So I'm not necessarily saying I go sleep with somebody else, but I'm saying entertaining conversations, being places, going to the place or going to the a spot where now I'm starting to neglect the relationship that I'm in, right? Because I'm having so much fun doing all these other things. I think there's ways to cheat on your relationship without necessarily, quote unquote, being intimate with another person. And I think a lot of those things happen along with cheating. This is just a cheating generation. Like, people cheat for whatever reason. People cheat, and I don't get it because I just don't get it, But I can't say I have been guilty of like conversations in the past with other folks,
But I'm not a cheater.
And I had to learn from that, though. You know what I mean? I had to learn from, what's acceptable, what's not, what may not hurt you may be hurting somebody else. What does that look like? And I think all of us have that room to grow and figure those things out with the person that we're with. And Jonathan, we know you're not a cheater. You make your lines very clear.
No, I'm not a cheater. I'm a person who's for an open dialogue about how this relationship is going to be. My marriage, I never cheated, and she never cheated on me. I had relationships where people never cheated on me. But I've also had relationships that did the opposite. I had basically an open relationship. But that's what I'm saying. Like, it depends on what level.
You have 1 minute remaining.
It depends on the level that you're to about what you want to do. Because if it's like this, like, if you did want an open relationship, don't care about what society's saying about you. That's what you want. But if you are a person who wants this person all to yourself, let that be known and tell them don't lie to you about what they want out of it. Like, get exactly what you're looking for by having that open conversation in the beginning of what both of y'all want.
It seems like we come right back to our foundation of love, truth, honesty, and respect. It seems like we just coming right back to those foundations. All right, y'all. So we've been talking about relationships on this episode. And as we close out, just want to kind of reflect on some of the questions that we talked about throughout this. We talked about, what a healthy relationship look like, the importance of communication versus compatibility. Can you really just kind of entertain, deal with, or be with somebody that's emotionally uninvolved or who has been affected or impacted by trauma? Just to kind of sum it up a little bit, we talked about, one of the last things we talked about is, can a relationship survive cheating? As we wrap up and go into episode 2 soon here, what we're going to be touching on is the 5 love languages, how they play into relationships. We talk about the 5 love languages, just so you guys get a good opportunity to start thinking about them now. Words of affirmation, acts of service, receiving gifts, quality time, and physical touch. Everybody has different preferences, but how does they play into, you and how you are with your significant other or your partner, whatever, whatnot. And then we're going to talk about red flags. That's going to be something that's going to be big for us, red flags, because oftentimes we simply ignore red flags. But as we close out this has been a great conversation with JB. JB, do you have any final words before we close out episode 1?
I meant what I said. Love with your whole heart. You got nothing to lose by doing it and everything to gain. Because in giving your whole heart, you could become that relationship that is so significant to someone else that you show them and open them up to a different way of life or looking at the world and bring them so much joy and pleasure that they know they exist to have this in their life. And they long to give it back to you. And y'all just filled each other's lives up. So man, just learn your partner, examine them, become everything they need, their doctor, their therapist, their everything, and find out what you get from that, from giving them your whole heart and learning and teaching them how to give theirs. Give your whole heart.
Man, I couldn't have said it better. I echo everything that he has just said. And make sure, in addition to that, make sure that that foundation is built off of love, because without love, I think that you have nothing. Love keeps you together. Love binds those relationships, ties them, helps you to get through the process together. Understanding that you guys will go through the fire, you will go through the storm, you will go through the rain, but the outcome is way better than the process. Is way better than than the way you went in. So, all right, you guys, that's it. That wraps up episode 1. I can't wait to see you guys for episode 2. Stay tuned. Peace, love, and hair grease. Hair grease.